Hello, second grade. This week we're going to continue to work on text features for reading, but this week we're going to be focusing on 3 specific types of text features that you will find in nonfiction text. So the 3 that we're going to be discussing today are table of contents, indexes, and glossary. So today's lesson, I'm going to be giving you some examples of those, explaining what they are, and we'll answer some questions about each one. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the text features that we're going to be talking about today are found in nonfiction stories or text. So let's just go ahead and review what nonfiction texts are before we get started. The purpose of a nonfiction book is to teach the reader about a certain topic. It includes lots of information and facts. So when we're reading a nonfiction book, it is something that is real. It is not a made-up story. It gives us facts and information about something. A nonfiction book has 3 special parts, and that's what we're going to talk about today, that help make it easier to find and understand the information that you need. So those 3 text features that we find in a nonfiction book are the table of contents, the index, and the glossary. So we're going to go through each one individually and talk about them, and then we'll answer some questions about each one. The first one is the table of contents. A table of contents is found in the front of a book. It tells you what is contained in the book. It tells you the name of the chapters and the pages they begin on. So if you've ever read a chapter book before, one of the first pages you come to lists all the chapters in the title of each chapter. So right here is an example of a table of contents that you might see when you open your book. So as you can see, this book is about sea turtles. So our table of contents tells us what page we're going to find each section in our book. So over here it says, read the table of contents included in a book called Sea Turtles. Now we're going to think, what kind of information will the reader get from each chapter? So if I look through these, each chapter title gives me kind of an idea of what it's going to be about. For example, this one says danger. So this chapter might be something that could be scary for a sea turtle or something that might put harm in the sea turtle's way. The next one we might look at is nest building. This one might talk about how they build the nest that they live in. So each title in our table of contents gives us an idea of what that page will be about. Okay, so now we're going to look at the same table of contents, and I'm going to ask you a question. So the question is, what chapter, it says what chapter, but we're going to change that to page number. What page number would give us information about different kinds of sea turtles? So we would have to find something over here that would make the most sense, that would give us information about different kinds of sea turtles. So if I was looking at this, I don't think that it would be danger, because we're learning about the different types of turtles. I don't think that it would be on the menu, because that really doesn't have anything to do with it either. So look through these titles in our table of contents and see which one you think would give us information about different kinds of turtles. I think the best choice would be page 10, Meet the Turtles. This would give us probably different types of turtles and explain what they're like and their features. So I think the best answer for this one would be Meet the Turtles, and we could find that on page 10. All right, the next question. Again, we're using the same table of contents. What page would the reader turn to if he wanted to find out about a sea turtle's enemies? So we talked about before, there is a certain word on this table of contents that means that you are in harm's way. And usually if a turtle has an enemy, their enemy might be trying to harm them. So if we're looking through, I think the key word for this one is danger. A sea turtle's enemy could cause it danger. So if I were going to read about a sea turtle's enemy, I would probably go to page 24 in my book to find that information. Okay, the last question about the table of contents asks, what page would the reader turn to if he wanted to find out what sea turtles eat? So if I look through here, Ocean World, Meet the Turtles, Nest Building, Oh Baby, On the Menu, Danger, Glossary, and Index. I think if we were talking about what a sea turtle is eating, that the best choice would be On the Menu. If you've ever been to a restaurant, you get a menu and you choose what you want to eat from it. So I would say that probably on page 22, it's going to be talking about what the sea turtle eats. So that is our first text feature today, table of contents. Now we're going to go on to the next one, and it is the index. So an index is found in the very back of your nonfiction book, and it gives you keywords that are mentioned in the book and tells you the page numbers that they can be found on. So the book that we're going to talk about now is about space. So in the back of this book, it's going to list keywords that are mentioned throughout the book. So let's say that you're doing a research project about comets, and you got a book from the library called Space. You don't need to read all of this stuff. You just want to find out about the comets. So you could look in the index and figure out what pages it would be on. So pages 84 to 87 would be the pages you would want to look at about comets. So our think says, how are words arranged in an index? So let's look at the words. It starts with A, then B, then C. So looking at that, we can tell that our index is in alphabetical order. So that makes it easier to find the specific word that you're looking for. So when would a reader use an index? We just talked about when you're trying to find specific information for something is when you might use an index. So now we're going to do a couple questions using an index. A reader wants to answer this question: how many constellations are there in space? What pages might include an answer? So if I had a book about space and I wanted to know just about constellations, I could go back in the index and find the word constellations, and it would tell me that I could read about constellations on page 96, 97, and 123. Using the same index, a reader wants to answer this question: how large is a black hole? What pages might include an answer? So I'm going to give you a second to think. If we're just looking for information about a black hole, we could use our index, and what pages might have our answer. So as you can see, the black hole is on page 104 and 108. So if we wanted to answer a question about the black hole, that would be where we would turn to. Okay, one more question about an index. A reader wants to answer this question: who was the first man to walk on the moon? What pages might include an answer? So we know that a person who goes into space or walks on the moon is called an astronaut. So if I wanted to find information about an astronaut, I could look in my index, find the word astronaut, and it tells me that I can find that information on pages 28, 29, 106, and 110. Okay, our last text feature we're talking about today is the glossary. A glossary is also found in the back of your book, and it gives you keywords that are used in the book and their meanings or definitions. So it's kind of like the index where you can find a certain word, but it also gives you a definition. It's almost like a small library, a small dictionary. So here's an example of a glossary. It gives us words like ash, climate, crater, and erupt. And as you can see, next to each word, it gives us the definition. So when would a reader use a glossary, and how would it help them? So if you're reading a book about volcanoes and you weren't sure what a crater was, you could look in the back of the book at the glossary, and it would tell you that the definition is that a crater is a bowl-shaped pit at the top of a volcano. So we're going to read this sentence from a book called Volcanoes. Ash and lava began erupting from the volcano. What is the difference between ash and lava? So if you didn't know, you could go back to your glossary and look up both words, ash and lava. Ash is dust and particles that blow from a volcano, and lava is hot melted rock. So we can find the answer directly in our glossary. Okay, and then our last question about glossaries. Read this sentence from the book Volcanoes. Scientists have discovered interesting rocks at the crater of the volcano. So, did the scientists discover the rocks at the top or the bottom of the volcano? So, how we can figure that out, we're going to look and see where the crater is. So it says crater is the bowl-shaped pit at the top of the volcano. So to answer our question, the scientists discovered the rocks at the top of the volcano. All right, that's it for today's lesson. If you have any questions about text features, feel free to contact your teacher and we'd be glad to help.